I'm Rachel Pignotti. Good morning. Thank you for joining us. Today we'll be talking about the 2026 Boston in-person assessments with Jessica Waxler. Jessica is the genetic counselor program manager for the Chung Lab at Boston Children's Hospital. Hopefully you've had a chance to read about her a little bit on the left. We'll be posting this on the right. We'll be posting this video later so you can rewatch any bits that you missed. On the left, I'd like to direct your attention to the QR code. This QR code takes you to our website, specifically the assessment page on our site. If you scroll down, you will see a teal button on this page. Here's the top of the site that you're taken to. If you scroll down, there is a teal button that will take you to a nice summary PDF that our team member, Michelle Bush, put together for us. Thank you very much, Michelle. Please do make sure that you register with both the foundation and the Chung team, because we will be contacting you for different reasons and we don't want to miss anyone. So we want to make sure you're registered in both places. Also, all of our hotel reservation information is on this nice downloadable PDF, and we have a tentative schedule. So we will continue to update this nice PDF along the way. If you forget how to get to it, just go to our website. And if you click on family support and go down to family research assessments, you'll land on this page. So thank you for that. And Jessica, without further ado, I'll go ahead and hand it over to you. We will be getting questions along the way. So if I spot something relevant during the discussion, I might try to jump in. If not, we'll hold off until the end. We'll see how it goes. All right. I'll stop my sharing. All right,
All
take
right.
it away.
Sounds good. Let me get my slides back up. All right. Can everybody see this okay?
Yes.
Okay. So this really is designed to be an informal discussion. I want to be able to answer any questions anybody has about these in-person natural history assessments. So again, as Rachel said, please jump in. If there are questions in the chat, there'll be time at the end for questions as well. A lot of this, if you're a returning participant, if you did this when we were back in October of 2024, much of this it'll be very similar to that structure, and much of this information is going to be very similar to what you experienced last time. If you're a new participant, welcome. And again, please jump in if there are any questions, but this will hopefully give you a high picture overview, what to expect, what's coming very soon. All right, so let me click into here a second. Okay. So just to get us all started on the same page, these are actually slides you may have seen in one of Dr. Chung's talks, but just why are we doing this? What is a natural history study for rare diseases? And the idea is we want to see how individuals do over time. So if some of this seems repeated, that's intentional. We actually want to capture those changes over time, helps everybody learn about MEF2C, and is going to help us guide clinical care, as well as if there's a treatment trial coming that becomes available, we have a baseline. We understand kind of what this condition looks like over time and in a variety of individuals. And we do this in two different ways, both online surveys and in-person assessments. And the idea behind all of this contributes to knowledge, as I said. It establishes a baseline. It allows you to interact with the experts that are studying MEF2C. We have an opportunity to meet families. Lots of families are coming together all at the same time. And sometimes as we're doing these feedbacks, the physical therapist might say something directly. You might get some informal direct feedback about your family member while you're interacting with these experts. So what this looks like for MEF2C specifically, again, we can take anybody who has a likely pathogenic MEF2C variant. We'll go a little bit more into the who can participate in this study. And then the idea is that we have online clinical data collection. We collaborate really closely with the Simon Searchlight effort. There will be members of the Simon Searchlight team, as I'll get to in a minute, available during these in-person assessments. And then what I'm focused on primarily is the in-person research assessments. And we're going to spend a lot of time going into those in detail. Just going to peek. I see a few things in the chat. I will say that we do try to be as collaborative as possible with other efforts. So if there are other research efforts, we don't want to duplicate things that were already done. And the long-term goal is to help contribute to knowledge of MEF2C. So we do have some formal collaborations in place. I'm sure others on the panel here could speak more to that, but there's a collaboration with a group in Poland. And again, really trying to make sure that we're sharing information and pulling information with rare diseases. That's so important. So just to kind of touch base on the Simon Searchlight piece and online clinical data collection. So this is just a schematic of what the Simon Searchlight process is. So we hope that everybody goes to simonsearchlight.org and signs up. You will need to provide your genetic test report, and this is where you're going to provide some of the medical history and fill out surveys. The Simon Searchlight team also does help collect a blood sample from interested participants. And the idea is that this needs to be updated every year. Again, as I mentioned with the natural history studies, we want to see those changes over time. So there is some duplication, and that's intentional to capture those changes. Okay. So for the in-person piece, and this is really what we're going to be focused on today, is that we are organizing these in-person research assessments where participants get to meet with Boston Children's Hospital team members, also referred to as the ASCEND study. So this is all run by Dr. Wendy Chung. And ASCEND, you can see down on the bottom, is Advancing Science, Care, and Exploration of Neurodevelopmental Disorders. And that study, the ASCEND study, is focused on really learning more about rare neurodevelopmental conditions like MEF2C. And again, we have an entire focus on MEF2C as part of this study. And in order for us to learn more about MEF2C, we are sort of coordinating a series of assessments. And these assessments may include things like a brief medical check-in, a neuropsychologic assessment, a motor assessment, and a research EEG. And we're going to go into that in a little bit more detail in a minute. So just to kind of give us the who, what, when, where aspects of things of what we're doing. Again, anyone with MEF2C variant is eligible to participate. We're coordinating these research assessments. The total should take about 3 to 4 hours. We'll get into why that's a variable number in a minute. And they're being offered by the BCH, the Boston Children's Hospital ASCEND study team. The Simon Searchlight team will also be available there to help with blood draws. And then this is going to be followed by a short family meeting, which other members on the panel can speak to a little bit more detail. We're holding this event on January 15th and 16th. So hopefully you all have that information already. And from the research assessment perspective of things, everything is going to be at 2 Brookline Place, which is a location of Boston Children's Hospital. They technically consider it a satellite location, but it's about a 15-20 minute walk from the main campus. So just kind of another building at Boston Children's, and the actual address is 2 Brookline Place. I've got some maps to show everybody where that is. So again, I mentioned I would go into more detail about who can participate. Again, anybody with a pathogenic or likely pathogenic variant is eligible to participate. We just want to make sure MEF2C is the right diagnosis. Doesn't matter which variant or which genetic change you have. We'll take all of them as long as we think that it's a MEF2C related diagnosis. We'll take new and returning participants. Everybody is welcome. And just a heads up that you will have to provide your genetic test report in 2 different places. So you do have to provide it to Simon Searchlight to get into their pipeline, and then you do have to provide it to the ASCEND team. If you have any trouble or questions about that, don't hesitate to reach out. I know a couple of families have had some unique circumstances. Reach out to our team. We're always happy to help to see what we can do to help you with this. We don't want it to be a hindrance for enrolling. If you've participated before at Boston Children's, you do not need to provide that genetic test report again. We already have you in our system. And that's why it's always important to reach out to our team. If there are any questions, we can get you down the right pipeline, the right process for where you are in our study. So what are we doing? So this is a pretty dense slide. But again, as I mentioned before, we are coordinating a series of research assessments. And these are going to include things like a brief medical intake, a check-in with a nurse practitioner or a physician on our team to go through medical history, current medications, maybe a brief physical exam. We'll also do a neuropsychologic assessment, so kind of developmental testing, a research EEG, and a motor assessment. The exact schedule of this series of assessments is customized for each individual. So your schedule may not look exactly the same as somebody else, and that's based on a whole variety of things. Some of our tests are designed for older individuals, and so it wouldn't be appropriate to ask a 2-year-old to do some of these assessments. Other assessments require an individual to speak English or Spanish as a primary language. So just again, these are customized schedules that we're going to be putting together. And everything is standardized research measures. So I think I want to emphasize that we're doing these because we're trying to learn more about MEF2C, and we may be trying to describe the group, not necessarily something that's a helpful piece of information you can take back to your doctor. And helpful in a clinical way. But as always, we do try to share the findings that we have back with the community. I know back in August, Dr. Chung had done a webinar for the community. So the goal is to get you this information back and to share what we're learning. And if you have specific questions, don't hesitate to reach out, but know that sometimes we don't always have something that's meaningful from a clinical standpoint. I see a couple, I'm going to pause here because I see a couple of questions coming through. Okay. I'm going to let the group, I can see there's some questions about sharing and protocols. And again, yes, absolutely. We have shared these protocols with other groups as well. Okay, so just to kind of touch base schematic, again, multimodal assessments. So lots of different things that we'll be having people do. I have a few pictures here. The types of things that we would be doing in the medical intake, again, heights, weights, brief medication review. The neuropsychologic assessment, there's a lot of terms for this: neuropsychologic assessment, cognitive testing, developmental testing, et cetera. And so it's all kind of bundled into the same umbrella. One of the things that in talking with the MEF2C group that is of interest are some things related to sensory seeking behaviors and some sensory things. So we are trying to adapt based on what we learned from our first round of assessments. Are there some new measures that we might want to be adding? So this is when I say these assessments may include it, that's part of the reason that this is a little bit, we're refining what is most meaningful for the MEF2C community based on what we've seen and what we need to see moving forward. For the motor assessment, again, this is one that varies pretty significantly based on someone's ability. And so at baseline, we'll get a general motor assessment, and we might do some additional measures as well. For the EEG, again, this is a different EEG compared to a clinical EEG. So I do want to emphasize this. A clinical EEG is looking for things like seizures. Our research EEG is generally measuring brain activity. What does the pattern of brain activity look like in MEF2C? And so we're trying to understand, can we see what that looks like over time? Can we identify that particular pattern versus you need further follow-up because you have seizure activity? So that's where one of the differences between the research and the clinical aspects. The benefit of the research EEG that we do is that it doesn't involve the stickers that are often really uncomfortable during an EEG. We actually use the cap that you can see in the picture there. It leaves the hair a little bit wet, excuse me, but is more pleasant than the stickers. Okay. All right. Okay. So just to kind of give you a sense of what does this look like individually for you. So once we'll go through kind of what we need for you to be able to create the schedule. But we will be giving you a schedule for these assessments. So this is just a screenshot. You don't need to read all the details on the screen. Screenshot of an email, the type of email that you're going to get from our team. And then what's a little bit bigger in the middle on this text is this is just an example schedule. We do try to schedule things as coordinated as possible. So you're not going to have a morning assessment followed by a 5 p.m. assessment. We do try to give small breaks in between to kind of regroup, have a snack. We try to work around the lunch hour as much as possible. If someone has a particular preference, things like my child naps at this time, we do try to accommodate that, but recognize we're trying to take the whole group and put everybody, there's only so many slots available. We only have 2 days to offer these. So we do our best to accommodate schedules, but this is the type of thing that you're going to get. And then we'll also, one of the things that you probably can't see because the text is so small in this email, but it does say a brief details about each assessment are below. This email will also include a brief summary of all the assessments that I had just quickly given an overview of on the previous slide. So where will these assessments be held? When will these assessments be held? We are holding the assessments on January 15th and 16th, so Thursday and Friday. But you/your family member only needs to be present for one day. So some people say, is this 2 days of assessments for my family member? And you're gonna get a slot within one of those 2 days. So if you have a day preference, please let the Ascend team know. We're certainly happy to accommodate that. The total time for assessments is around 3 to 4 hours. But again, if you say my family member really can't handle the EEG, or I don't speak English, we can't do a neuropsych assessment, that in total time might change, or you might have a preference. They need a longer break between assessments, so the total amount of time might expand. But it's about 3 to 4 hours, depending on that exact schedule. So a small chunk of time within those 2 days is what we need you for. We have had requests for families saying, can we split it up? Can we do one assessment on Thursday and one assessment on Friday? And that's also a possibility, although many families just prefer to just get it all done at once. I do want to point out, given the when, we are holding these assessments in January in New England, so there is always a possibility of inclement weather. So just please be flexible. We'll do our best. We understand that might delay flights. We understand that might delay our assessment teams getting in. So I feel obligated to put this on because it's January, but hopefully this is a non-issue here. Okay. So where are these assessments going to be held? Resource assessments, as I mentioned, are at Tubercline Place. You may hear this abbreviated as 2BP. So all assessments are going to be in the same location. And you're going to see the Ascend study team everywhere as part of these assessments. So we'll have a check-in desk at the lobby. So as soon as you walk into the building, you'll see us. And then we'll have team members around to direct you to the various floors that our assessments are taking place in this building. We're also going to try to reserve a conference space for families. So there are waiting areas on each floor and in the lobby, but if you really needed like a private place to go, we'll be able to kind of reserve a conference room similar to in a place local to where the assessments will be taking place. This will be particularly important. There's at least one floor that shares its space with an allergy clinic. So we have to be very careful about what kinds of foods can be consumed, for example, in that space. And so the conference room will eliminate that issue. Just know, as I mentioned, we share the floor with allergy in that one particular space, but this is an active hospital location, so there will be patients coming in and out for routine medical visits outside of the MEF2C meeting. But again, we'll make sure we have a space and signs, and you'll know where you're going when you're in here.
Jessica, do you mind if I
Yeah,
jump in really quickly?
please do.
One option that we might try to provide for families this year is the availability of reserving like a boxed lunch or a sandwich ahead of time. So we might have those available on site for families that are taking a quick break and don't want to venture out into the weather, maybe to grab lunch. So that might be a convenience that we're able to offer this year.
Yeah,
Next year, I should say, in
that would
2026.
be wonderful. Our team does have a list of sort of what are the food options within sort of nearby. So I will say 2BP or Tubercline Place does not have its own cafeteria. There's some vending machines in the lobby, but it does not have a cafeteria, unlike many hospital locations. So you do have to venture out for food. We are happy to provide information about what's around and which ones can get a stroller or a wheelchair into them a little bit more easily. But just know that you do have to venture out for that. But we can make sure we're happy to pass out food. We'll have a space that families could sit and eat if that is the case. Okay. Um, so just to kind of give you a little bit, some maps and some overview. So this is sort of the block, if you will, where Two Brookline Place is located. I will actually say, so Two Brookline Place is obviously labeled here, but there is a One Brookline Place. That's this other big white block. So there's a One Brookline Place and a Two Brookline Place, and then a shared parking garage for the two of them. There is, for those of you who are coming, there is a public transportation stop. So the Brookline Village T stop, which is on the Green Line in Boston, is right across the street. And then I'll kind of connect to where the hotels are on the next slide. But kind of up Brookline Ave is going to head toward the main Boston Children's Campus, which is also a little bit closer to where the family meeting itself will be located. And I'm sure there are others on the panel here who are going to be able to speak a little bit more to the locations. But just to give you another sense here, zooming out a little bit further, we have the Two Brookline Place circled with the research assessments across the street. So kind of it's about a 4-minute walk. That's a generous 4-minute walk, kind of like through the block and across the street. The Hilton Garden is there. That's where the Simon Searchlight team will be located if you wanted to stop. Am I up to date? Do I want to give a blood draw? And then I know that's one of the accommodations. I've got the accommodations on the right here. This is actually the information that Boston Children's Hospital provides about these two hotels. So defer to the MEF2C group about what they have and have worked out for accommodations. But again, those are relatively close, and just it's kind of around the corner, kind of this way for the Homewood Suites location. It just sort of down this location here. Anything else, Rachel, or anybody else wants to add to this?
I don't, it looks like we will have a shuttle from Homewood Suites going to the conference location on the Harvard campus. So the conference will be separate. I believe that'll be toward the end of the day on Friday. But I will say thank you for mentioning the blood draws and the location of Simon Searchlight being set up at the Hilton Garden Inn. That was really convenient last year. We stopped in, we got to meet the team. My husband and my son did a quick blood draw. So that was super convenient and helpful. Thank you for mentioning that.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's going to be more important for those who haven't given blood before. It's always good to meet the team, check in. Do I have any surveys that I haven't done? They can help you kind of make sure that you're up to date. But the blood draw, this is a sort of, they can check. My guess is it's a one-time only blood draw for most of that. So if you've given blood, it's not something you need to continue to do again. Okay. And you can always do, Simon Searchlight does have the ability to do blood draws remotely. But we're also trying to offer the convenience. They can bring a phlebotomy team to these types of family meetings to help facilitate that. So again, you have either option. We try to make this as easy as possible for families. Okay. And I can see questions coming in. I'm going to let the MEF2C team talk about accessibility in terms of the shuttles. I will say, in sort of one-off cases, if there's an absolute need, we can arrange transportation from Two Brookline Place up to the Boston Children's Hospital main campus, which is relatively close to where the conference is setting. It's more of a one-off case, but if there's an emergency, we can certainly, don't hesitate to contact the Ascend team if there's an emergency for somebody getting from point A to point B. Okay. So in terms of next steps, as Rachel said at the beginning, we really want you got to sign up. Let MEF2C know that you are interested, and also let the study team know. So this is a second QR code. I think that Rachel had information in that lovely PDF, but this is the study team QR code as well as a link if you prefer to just copy and paste the link in. This will let us know kind of that you're on our list. We can confirm that we definitely have you down for study assessments. You can let us start the communication process for letting us know if you prefer Thursday versus Friday. I will say Friday is going to be a somewhat more limited number of slots simply because we are starting the family meeting is, I believe, and others correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe is scheduled for 4 to 7. So we just want to make sure we finish our assessments a little bit earlier enough to allow families to be able to get to the location for the talks. So just know we have to end a little bit earlier in the day on Friday. But we'll do our best to accommodate any needs that anybody has. Know that one of the things, once you contact our research team, one of the things that we're going to be sending you is a form. If you came last year, you filled out a form. We have another one to fill out for you. We want to hear about your family member. We want to hear about any preferences for scheduling. It's really those details that help us customize your schedule. And we customize the schedule not just for you, but for the group. We're really trying to work with everybody all together. So we wait till we kind of get a critical mass, so to speak, of these forms in, and then we start that scheduling process. That means that our exact schedules will be coming about a month prior to the assessments, but we can confirm, like if you're like, I need to book my flight, can we please just make sure that my assessment is going to be on this day in the morning? We can definitely do that. So don't hesitate to reach out to our team. We'll try to confirm your day so you can make travel plans and accommodation plans, but just know the exact schedule. Like at 9 a.m. you are going to be here. That piece will be coming about a month prior to the assessments, because again, we coordinate it for the group as well as the individual and our assessment teams. I'm going to peek the here. Okay. Okay. And then I'm going to pause. I see some really good questions in terms of coordinating remote, sort of what we can do remotely and what we can do beforehand. And then the raised hand, I'm opening it up to questions here. But just to answer in terms of coordinating, as I mentioned earlier, these are standardized research assessments with a very specific protocol. So there's a lot of differences between the type of EEGs that are done. And so we need to make sure it's a resting state research EEG with the same type of caps in order to make everything comparable. And so not everything is something that can be done outside and pooled data. So while sometimes outside information can be very helpful, so if you've had a recent neurodevelopmental assessment, we don't want to repeat that because you actually learn the test, right? As you're doing the test, you might actually, oh yeah, I did this last week, and so you've learned what you did last week, and so you're actually going to be doing it a little bit different if you do it again right away. So there's some things that are helpful for us to have that information, but others, because we're doing it in a standardized particular way, we can't always have it done at an outside institution. And I'm going to stop sharing my screen. We can always put up our email address or the QR code again, but this way I can see the questions a little bit better that are coming in. Okay. And Rachel, or Raphael, did you want to ask your question?
You covered the remote. That was the one I was going to address with you. And I think you answered that fine. It's important for the protocols to be consistent, so that's why it has to be done in Boston. And this will be the end of our presentation today of our webinar. Thank you for all participating. Thank you so much, Jessica, for all the great information.
And I do see a few more questions coming in.
Yeah. Sorry.
So just in terms of the EEG, So we schedule the EEG for about 45 minutes. And most of that time is actually making sure the cap is placed in the right location. And so we bring out iPads and videos are watched and the child or whatever distraction works for the individual. And they can be moving around as long as someone can be kind of placing the cap on their head. The actual amount of time that we collect sort of the brain activity is a much shorter period of time. It's only about 9 minutes. And they certainly do not have to be perfectly still. The goal is to face the screen and kind of look at what the prompts are during that time. But we know these are kids and that they're moving around. And as long as the cap is on, it's different than compared to an MRI, where you really need to be a little bit more still. And that's why we use sedation for MRI. This is not that case. I know we had a lot of good success with the EEGs for the MEF2C cohort the last time we did.
Oh, I see another one. Do you see this one, Jessica?
Yep. And then the Simon Searchlight does not, that is a one time. You can always check in with the team to see if they need anything else. But the blood draws that Simon Searchlight are doing are one time once they have that sample for your family. They don't usually need another one.
Thank you for that.
And then just to kind of clarify, and I apologize, we work very closely with the Simon Searchlight team, but if we need to tap a member of their team to answer the questions, but there's no difference between the remote collection process that they have and the in-person collection. It's just that they are trying to offer the convenience. Sometimes it's hard for families to coordinate that remote collection. And so we're trying to offer the convenience of in-person assessments.
Questions might be winding down. I'm not seeing anything new popping in.
Okay.
So we could segue to my final slide again, maybe? Let's try it again. Thank you to everyone for participating today. And Jessica, thanks for all the great information. I am sure questions will pop up after the fact. So we want to make sure that we give our information again on this right-hand side of the slide. Always email us at info@usmef2cfoundation.org. We can help you with some of those logistical questions, hotel, shuttle. There will be more information on the shuttle. I think we did confirm that it's accessible, but we'll make sure there's more information available on that. We'll make sure you have more details on lunch. If that lunch option will be available. There is also in that PDF I pulled up at the beginning of the presentation. There's an RSVP link in there for just event type things happening on site during that week. So lunch preferences and that sort of thing will be addressed in that form as well. On the left-hand side, that's this QR code again is how you get to our landing page on the website, our assessment page, and that handy quick reference PDF. And again, Jessica shared the information for the Ascend study too. If you've got technical questions about the study itself, you can reach out to the Chung team and
I
get your
do
answers there.
want to introduce Candace as well, who's on the panelist. So if you're reaching out to the Ascend team, kind of we have other team members as well, but the two primary people that you're going to talk to are myself or Candace. And I think many of you who were in Boston last time met her. She was sitting at that check-in desk. So again, making sure those are face and names of people you can reach out to with any questions.
All right, thank you very much. And as a reminder, we will post this webinar. So if you missed anything and you need a recap, feel free to watch the video later. That's all we have for today. Be safe, be well. It's great seeing you, everybody. And thanks, Jessica, again for spending some time with us today. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.